Hi, everybody. Hey, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I am super excited to be speaking this morning with Andrea Zapata, who is the EVP, Ad Sales, Research and Measurement and Insights at Warner Brothers Discovery, and Sean Muller, who is the founder and CEO of iSpot. And one of the things I really I like to do is, of course, check out everybody's LinkedIn profile. And what I noticed that Andrea said in hers was, I am passionate about driving advertising revenue using an audience-first, platform-agnostic, and data-driven approach. First, you have to love the word passion in your LinkedIn profile, but also just talking about sort of the pillars of measurement, and I can think why we're here at the panel today. So I will kick it off and just say, hey, this has been a big year for Warner Brothers Discovery, and so much activity on the measurement front. You know, why do you think it's just so important that we make measurement happen now?
So first, I'm so glad to be here and working closely, obviously, with iSpot and representing a portfolio of brands. You heard John speak earlier. I mean, our reach is undeniable. But it's the passion that audiences and fans have for our brands itself. And I sit squarely in the research role. I am passionate about driving revenue. And the best way in which to do that is to demonstrate value. And value can come in a number of different ways. It can come from just sheer counting metrics, so how many people did you reach and how many times did you reach them? But then also it can come in the world where it's inherently linked to efficacy. And we need multiple partners in order to measure adequately all of the KPIs and the value we bring to the table for our advertisers in order for us to truly have partnership that allows us to be nimble and actually make recommendations on how to do campaign reach frequency smarter and better across a portfolio like ours. And it's a lot of fun. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say at the same time, I mean, we're in a moment in time in the industry where data is widely available. First-party set-top box viewership from my shoes. I know viewership from set-top box, ACR, first-party viewership across platforms. The ability to get richer insights has never been easier, and I think that's really the value where we are today. So we can talk more about measurement. I know we will, but we are deep in deeply invested in making sure that we're part of the forefront of pioneering this.
Yeah, that is definitely something we're going to touch on, especially you said multiple KPIs. Because, of course, we've known forever that brands approach their media investments in lots of different ways, and they use a lot of different metrics, and it's not just about counting. So, Sean, iSpot has been making a huge amount of noise this year. First, there was the Tunity acquisition, followed by a Series D investment from Goldman, and lots of new currency momentum. With all this in mind, you know, what are some of the big bets that iSpot is making right now, and how does that tie in with this new currency momentum?
Yeah, hey, everybody, good morning. First, I was just curious what my LinkedIn profile says, and I don't know if you have that information. But yeah, it's been a busy year. And obviously, we raised $325 million earlier this year. And so in terms of big bets, there's really three core areas. So first, we're doubling down on our core business, which is helping advertisers and media companies value and optimize the media. That is at the center of everything that iSpot does. So it includes audience measurement, business outcome measurement, and brand impact as well, both from a creative and media perspective. So we're investing heavily in that. We've hired 150 people this year, and we're continuing to hire. So we're hiring at a time where a lot of companies are cutting back. So we're all in on this. But the two other major big bet areas are currency, where we're doing a lot of work. There's a lot happening in currency. It's everything from the integrations that we have to do to MRC accreditation, to everything we have to deliver in the data and the stability of the data and the data sets that we use, and even things like out-of-home measurement. You mentioned our Tunity acquisition. Right. So insane amount of investments in currency. There's a lot there. And then finally, we're doubling down on CTV and CTV measurement. And we have a cross-screen measurement platform that's quite ubiquitous in the industry. But this year in particular, we unveiled CTV verification to go with it, which is ensuring that an ad that is played on a streaming device actually makes it to a TV set that's on and on the right input.
Yeah, that seemed to be I did read that on your LinkedIn profile, which was this announcement with Group M, Unilever, Walgreens, Danone, and others really trying to improve measurement of CTV. So congratulations about that. That was a really big announcement. So, Andrea, what were some Warner Brothers Discovery is a huge innovator in the measurement space, and as you make new currencies become a reality, you just completed a 6-month proof of concept study with iSpot, with Video Amp, and with ComScore. Talk to us a little bit about the learnings from that study.
Yeah, so we did. We embarked about a year ago. I actually joined Warner Media at the time last year, and it was sort of a moment in time when, again, there was a lot of momentum around alternative measurement, but ultimately the end goal is to make it ready for currency, for transaction. But we didn't know what we didn't know at the time, and this is really lofty. I mean, this is ambitious stuff, and it's not easy. It's also very costly, and we're also looking to learn so we can advise not just internally our pricing and planning folks, right, our sales folks, but ultimately our measurement partners on how to get this not perfect, but better, right? And so we did. We had a slew of agency partners, a number of different campaigns. We did work with the 3 measurement partners. And what we learned, and I would say the 4 takeaways that we have that I think from an industry perspective at least, we can really rally around. And these are kind of no-brainers. And when I say them, you're going to be like, oh, really? Yes. Standardization, right? Our ability to actually define what is a view across a linear environment and a digital environment. UEs, right? Time qualifiers. These things, when you look at the metrics that come out of these different partners who are using different data sets, different methods, at the end of the day, we would have to say internally, why is there if we were to look at what we're used to, why do things look different? And I always have to say, just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong, right? But if we can get some of this low-hanging fruit around pure definitions, literally standardized across the marketplace, I think we'll have greater adoption. Identity resolution is another one that we're very passionate about as well. Passion, big word. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, it goes back to being transaction capable. What agreements do you have if I were to turn on the lights tomorrow to say, can we transact off of not an alternative measurement read, but truly transact, enable a buyer and a seller on a KPI to do business? That has to happen today, right? And so those are sort of the things that, and personification, we won't get into it, but it's also a big deal. Standardization, personification, identity resolution, and transaction capable. This is the next big focus at WBD as we prepare for what is going to be the 23 upfront in 8 months, if we can imagine that.
That's amazing. So what do you see as the main challenges in effectively, operationalizing a new currency? What are the kind of things you run into?
Education, education, education. I mean, we have been trained on one currency since the beginning of time. And we're used to seeing things on a panel, broad strokes, right? Using content as proxy to reach audiences. And the game has fundamentally changed. It changed 10 plus years ago. I actually was at Hulu early days when we were using our first party data and really debunking the myths that you needed prime time, one network, or The Bachelorette to reach her. You actually needed a slew, a media mix rich with data in order to not just get upper funnel metrics going, but then lower funnel conversion. And so I think now, here we are, 2022, and with the ability to actually work smartly with partners who have made the right investments, right? Who are continuing to think about how to productize and operationalize, the education is real. I mean, everything from our pricing and planning to our integration teams to our AEs, and ultimately, our researchers. Yeah. The research community, I think, is more precious about what they've known forever, and it's really hard to get out of the comfort zone. But you know what? That's not going to stop us, right? And then obviously working with our agencies to continue to find the right partners to invest now so we can just start making more headway.
Yeah, I really think that's an excellent point about even the research community having to be really pushed along for this ride, because there is a sort of a cultural legacy of the way we've always looked at the world. And, in some ways, marketers moved on a long time ago, and now we need the entire ecosystem to move along with us and now look at the world through the lens of our marketers and new capabilities, which brings us back to Sean. So, networks have started to embrace these new currencies, such as Warner Brothers Discovery, to ensure that their audiences are accurately counted. But it's sort of like, what are the main reasons that an advertiser should care?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So advertisers have actually adopted alternative measurement for a long, long time now. You have advertisers in the marketplace that are buying based on business results, based on reach against particular advanced audiences. And so advertisers have actually been doing this for a long, long time and making buying decisioning based on data that's not the currency data. So that's been happening. So now the question is, well, what is the advantage of bringing those same data sets that advertisers are already making decisions on right to the transaction level? And the benefits are immense for both media companies and for advertisers, because if you align on the KPIs, right, whether it's advanced audiences or cross-screen reach or business outcomes, then the networks can better optimize and deploy, as opposed to just sell, hey, here's adults 18 to 49, and and then the advertiser behind the scene actually understands the business impact of all their buys. So I think there's clearly a lot of value for the media companies, first in just counting things correctly, but then in bringing those KPIs closer to the transaction level, if not to the transaction layer. And then the advertisers benefit because now there's alignment, and the media companies can help them achieve the right goals versus some goals that are not really the primary goals.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I mean, when you use program viewing as a surrogate for everything else that an advertiser wants to do, that's not really very good measurement. And we've mentioned the word KPIs many times in business outcomes, and that is really where the industry is going, and it's where advertisers need to go. So how do you, at iSpot, how do you kind of operationalize multiple KPIs? Doesn't that introduce a lot of complexity? How do you handle that, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, everybody has a different KPI, so you do need to have, that's what makes measurement and currency challenging, right? You gotta have a lot of different capabilities, and those capabilities have to go deep. So we've invested a lot in everything from measuring attention to business outcome to brand impact, understanding the impact of creative on the media plan. But ultimately, the clients that we see, and we work with over 400 large advertisers, ultimately the ones that are doing it right are going to business impact and business outcomes, and they're making their media buying decisions and optimization based on that impact.
I would say, though, I think that I go back to the inherent link, right? Yes, they absolutely want to go back to the impact, but it's understanding the amount of media weight in certain types of vehicles that will allow for the optimal media impact. That's why I think getting the counting, I'm a researcher from like Erwin Efron, right? Recency being very important, pulsing being very important, and understanding why you use television to then optimize your digital, or your digital to then optimize, or just converge them together. But it does go back to having a clear-sighted view of, are we releasing a new vehicle? Upper funnel metrics. Do we need somebody to go to a website? Well, I gotta have a greater targeted mix there, right? Do we absolutely need conversion? Frequency absolutely has to happen. And so your ability to actually help us tie it together, and for the advertiser who really does care, did I move a truck off a lot, right? It's taking digital-like tactics to the TV world, and it couldn't be like more exciting than right now.
Right. Yeah, so you've just made some sort of observations about reach. Sean, do you want to add to that? Sort of as you two work together, what are the kind of things that you found?
Yeah, in fact, we can maybe go right into some of the work. So, by the way, we've been working with Warner Media for 5 years, Discovery for 6 years, Warner Brothers Studios for 7 years. So we go deep. We work really well together. We iterate and really try to understand what moves the business. And so one of the projects that we worked on here recently is, we all know reach is very core to currency, right? And counting things correctly and measuring reach and frequency, super important. But not all reach is created equal, right? And different reach generates different results. So this is what we hunkered down. You know, as John said, I mean, these are just incredible assets here that just came together from Warner Media and Discovery. So one of the things we worked on is, let's see what Warner Media and Discovery look like together from a reach perspective. So we took an auto client, and we basically simulated their reach, what their reach would have been in Q4 of last year, on the combined Warner Media and Discovery properties. And then we wanted to understand the effectiveness of that reach. We're calling it effective reach. It's really what we're talking about. And so, Andrea, do you want to maybe jump in on something?
Absolutely. And just to sort of set the stage, and we can go to the first slide. In any given day, you know, we're reaching millions upon millions, 230 million people a month. We are 19% of the share. We're bigger than any broadcaster out there. And to your point, reach is tremendously important, again, for moving product off shelves or cars off lots. And at the end, and I always joke, you use television for what it's good at, right? Reaching lots of people in a short window of time. What's important in that sort of table stakes, especially if you're living in the land of television, is that you are indeed going to reach a lot of people. But when you live in the house of WBD with the portfolio of assets that you have, what we learned using iSpot's data is that this time last year, our reach cumes quicker, right, than the broadcasters. I'm being very specific about why we are making comparison against broadcasters for a reason. One, well, because guess what? We're as big as a broadcaster and then some. But two, it's about efficiency at the end of the day. So if you actually go to the next slide, and sorry, the researcher in me wants to get up and actually explain the slides, but here's the deal. Maybe we'll send these slides to you. The blue is going to be WBD. The other three are going to be the top 3 broadcasters. And at the end of the day, what you're going to see here is not only did you reach more people in a shorter window of time, and we continue to grow, and then obviously thinking about optimal frequency, our reach is cost effective, right? At the end of the day, if you can actually invest $3 million in the first couple of weeks, we're going to get to 45% of persons 2+ or 25 to 54. It's going to take an additional $8 million and several more weeks for a broadcaster to do so. Recency, we talked about Efron. It's very important, especially as we go into the holiday season, that we think smartly about not just reaching lots of people and doing it in an efficient manner, but we start doing it earlier, because holiday shop, I mean, who's bought a pumpkin spice latte, right? It's happening. It's happened a couple of weeks ago, and we know that right now there's a lot of retailers out there who are being very specific about October. And so if you can do it sooner, we've heard this message before, but data that allows us to say, not only are we reaching the right people, but ultimately was it effective? So we can go to, I think, another slide that drives outcomes. Go ahead. This is the best part.
Yeah, I agree. So this is really ultimately comes down to results here and outcomes. So you can see for this particular automaker, this shows on a cumulative basis the incremental web visits that were driven by the blue line here, of course, is Warner Brothers Discovery compared to the top 3 broadcast networks. And you can see the difference is pretty significant. And this particular automaker has been a long time iSpot partner, so we know how important these results are for this particular automaker. And so you can see very quickly this drives a really great story, not just counting audiences, but then really understanding the impact of those, because it really is pretty decisive here. And again, these are incremental visits. So these are visits that would have not happened had they not been running their media on Warner Brother Discovery. And I think this is how we start bringing those KPIs closer to the transaction.
Yep. Well, thank you. Yeah, and I love those graphs because they really show the velocity in building reach, which is so important to marketers, and that can often get lost when you're not dealing with enough volume at the same time. So love that.
Simultaneous reach, I think, is becoming a real luxury, and the ability to find it is what we bring to the table. And I think our ability to demonstrate not only the simultaneous reach, but the impact, this is what makes this interesting, because not only do we say, yes, this is a really great, beautiful chart, right? But can we do it across category? Can we start making recommendations on different kinds of media spends? It's not just about linear, it's about our cross-platform totality. And at WBD, we're very passionate about making sure that we are partners with our advertisers, making the right kind of recommendations, but we can't do it without partners like iSpot.
Right, that's terrific. So just final words here, since we're just about out of time. You know, you said it, Sean, you said it's not just about counting, it's about more. So fill in the blanks a little bit for our audience is what more are we really bringing to the table with new measurement innovation?
Well, so first of all, I think it's important just to not forget that counting is the basis of everything. And if you don't count correctly, then whatever you're building on top of it. So counting is at the heart of this. Getting the reach, frequency, impressions, GRPs, TRPs, standard demo breaks, advanced audiences, all that has to be there, and it has to be consistent and accurate. But once you get beyond that, I mean, you saw some of the examples here. You can look at the cost effectiveness of a reach. You can look at attention, reach by attention. You can look at reach by business outcomes. So these are the metrics that as we bring them closer to the transaction, both the media, the buy and the sell side will benefit tremendously. But first, we have to solve this counting thing that we have here now with not just one company doing it, but more than one company doing it.
And Andrea, why don't you kind of bring it home for us with the advertisers and WBD's perspective?
Yeah, I think more is about granularity. It's accuracy. It's creating value in a differentiated way to our ad partners. And when I say 230 million people we reach in any given month, we take none of that for granted. And we want to be able to create differentiation amongst that audience, and we want to make sure that we are truly solving the problems that our advertisers bring to the table. And again, at the end of the day, we are far, far away from the fact that it's just a GRP. We could get more nuanced than that, and we have an obligation and a responsibility to do so. And so sitting with data and measurement, it's a fun job.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and let's give our panelists a hand.
Thank you.